There's a lot of COVID patients in there.
Yeah.
You know about this?
Yeah.
Oh, well, would you mind heading back in? It looks like they really need you.
Now, I was thinking, so I could get paid for what I work. Maybe I get an additional $20 to $30 per hour.
Yeah, we can't do that.
What? How about instead you take this mandatory wellness module?
Okay, now, I'm quitting.
Wait, what? First responders, heroes.
Nope, not this time. Not getting away
No,
with
wait.
it.
Now what are we gonna do? We have a shortage of nurses.
Hey, do you need help?
Weren't you just...
I was, but now I'm a traveling nurse. I go to hospitals with staffing shortages and work until they don't need me anymore.
Oh, great, because we need you.
Cool, so my rate is like 20 to 30 more per hour than what it was when I worked here.
That pokes fun a little bit at the shenanigans that's currently taking place in our hospitals, but I think it segues perfectly into today's video, which I think is an important one about travel nurses and the free market. Hey there, my name is James Lee. Welcome to my channel 5149, where I talk business, politics, and society. And I want to start our conversation today with this letter written to Mr. Jeffrey Zients, who is the current White House coronavirus response coordinator. The letter is from Congressman Peter Welch. He's a Democrat representing Vermont, and Congressman Morgan Griffith, a Republican representing the state of Virginia. It's also co-signed by about 200 other members of Congress. So this is what you would call a bipartisan inquiry. So let's dive into what these members of Congress are so concerned about. Quote, "We are writing because of our concerns that certain nurse staffing agencies are taking advantage of these difficult circumstances to increase their profits at the expense of patients and the hospitals that treat them. We urge you to enlist one or more of the federal agencies with Competition and Consumer Protection Authority to investigate this conduct to determine if it is the product of anti-competitive activity and or violates consumer protection laws." Hang on a second, there's gonna be a bit to unpack there, but are they actually suggesting that we need to cap the pay of travel nurses, the people who are risking their lives on the front lines in hospital ERs fighting this pandemic? Yes, I think that is what they're suggesting. I mean, what they're more or less insinuating here is that nurses, travel nurses specifically, and their staffing agencies are taking advantage of the pandemic by charging hospitals astronomical rates for nurses who they need to shore up those staffing shortages that we're hearing a lot about, and that this is somehow in violation of consumer protection laws. As if the average consumer doesn't already have to deal with the exorbitant fees charged by hospitals today. But to be fair, the letter writers frame their concerns as a problem with the agencies themselves and their cut of ballooning prices, citing reports of agencies taking 40% or more of the amount being charged to the hospitals for themselves in profits. Nurses themselves, they imply, aren't reaping most of the benefits. Right, so I just want to be clear that they are couching their accusation in the context of greedy staffing agencies and not the nurses themselves, and that may very well be happening. Hashtag capitalism, am I right? But I want to reframe the conversation a little bit, because guess what else is going on at the same time right now in regards to price gouging? More than half of retail businesses are using inflation to price gouge. When asked how recent inflation has impacted profitability, 56% of retail businesses responded that inflation gave them the ability to raise prices beyond offsetting costs.
Hey, I'd like to buy this bread. For sure, that'll be $2,000. Did you say $2,000?
Yeah, I'm so sorry though, you have no idea.
Why did the price go up?
It's not my fault, bro. This pandemic has been so hard on my business. I can barely afford to pay my workers.
But you're actually making more money right now.
Oh yeah, this is the most profitable year I've ever had.
So you didn't need to raise the prices.
No, but I can though. Isn't that cool?
No.
Also $3,000 for bread now.
I like using these TikTok skits because I think they are a humorous way to address a pretty serious issue, but I'm also addicted to the platform, I think. It's bad. But back to my point, corporations are raising prices not only to cover their rising costs due to inflation, but well beyond that. Meaning that, in other words, they are exploiting a crisis situation to fatten their bottom lines, which is something not so dissimilar to what these 200 plus members of Congress are accusing travel nurse staffing agencies of doing. But for some reason, I do not see a bipartisan congressional effort to end corporate price gouging. And maybe that is because, according to Open Secrets, in just 2021 alone, there was over $116 million spent on lobbying on behalf of hospitals and nursing homes. That's big money, and as always, if you follow the money, the story starts to make a little bit more sense.
This is a free market and people We are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Right, the market is free, it's a free market, and everyone should be able to participate unless you see somebody who you don't like participating a little too much, if you know what I mean. And in that case, you give us money and we'll see what we can do to stop them from participating as much. Right? This travel nurse pay story could be told very differently. It could very well be a story of hospital greed, or at the very least, hospitals mismanaging their capital and talent in a way that makes them ill-equipped to deal with the strains of a pandemic. Because the fact is, according to Accuse reporting, healthcare has been as profitable as ever during the pandemic. That has been true for both hospitals and health insurers. Like the opening TikTok we watched together at the beginning poked fun at, hospitals, instead of investing in their staffing nurses, now have to shell out more money for more expensive travel nurses to deal with these staffing shortages. Speaking in broad strokes, obviously, but it's not that they can't pay the nurses more, as we've just seen. They're just choosing to invest their capital elsewhere. For healthcare, CEO pay to average worker pay was 253 to 1 in 2020. The highest paid healthcare executive was listed as Amir Rubin from One Life Healthcare, doing business as One Medical, which is a high-end primary care provider. He reportedly earned over $199 million last year. Granted, most of that was in equities. But still, what I'm getting at is, in reality, our free market isn't really all that free, and the policies that are enacted are shaped by wealthy political donors, be it corporations or individuals, and the narratives that are crafted and then sold to us are paid for by those very same people and organizations. And in this case, the narrative that they chose isn't one about the need for us to investigate the ties between healthcare companies, hospitals, and Congress vis-a-vis lobbying, or about the astronomical pay of healthcare and hospital CEOs, but they went with a different narrative here, a weird one, I think, that's couched in the need to protect consumers from, quote, anti-competitive behavior of travel nurses and their staffing agencies.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
That, I think, is an appropriate reaction here. You know, we're in an election year, and we've been told in the past that if we don't get what we want, don't boo, vote. And in the very near future, we will be told again that we need to vote harder still. But, you know, this is my opinion, but regardless of which party you might want to support, what good is the vote if our elected representatives don't represent at all the will of the people? And the truth is, I can't really blame these guys. You know, the same reason you perform functions at your job because your employer pays you to do so, I think our politicians act in a very similar way. Like, there are things that I don't like to do in my job, but I do it because they have that paycheck hanging over my head. So I think what we ought to do is start thinking about politicians as employees of their donors. I say this now and I will continue to say this, but if we want a healthier America, actually just something smaller scale, if we want just the person we vote for to do the things that we expect them to do, we have to look in their wallet and be laser focused on rooting out the corrupting influence of money in politics, because this inquiry about travel nurse pay is a deliberate, or at least in my opinion, a deliberate misdirection away from the people who are actually pulling the strings. And those are my thoughts for this week. I obviously think, you know, regardless of whether nurse staffing agencies are acting nefariously or not, it's very, very odd to be setting some sort of cap on travel nurse pay when there isn't any sort of limitation on what an executive at a hospital or healthcare provider can make. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. If you made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you have, please click on that like button, share this video with the people you know. You can help grow our community by subscribing, maybe consider hitting that notification bell icon so you don't miss any of my future videos. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next week.